In modern medicine, advanced Alzheimer's disease is understood as a one-way street. Once the disease progresses to its late stages, the neurological decline is considered permanent. At this point, therapeutic strategies shift entirely to supportive care. Meaningful functional recovery, the return of lost skills or memories, is medically improbable. But a recent clinical case report complicates this consensus. The subject was an octogenarian Japanese-American woman who had been living with progressive cognitive decline for 10 years. Over the preceding 5 years, her physical autonomy had vanished. She required constant caregiver support for basic mobility and suffered from chronic urinary incontinence. Her cognitive capabilities had mirrored that physical decline. She exhibited a flat affect, a severe reduction in emotional expressiveness, and her speech had diminished to almost exclusively monosyllables. Looking for a way to address her profound distress, her medical team initiated a highly unconventional observational intervention, a 5-gram oral dose of psilocybin-containing mushrooms. Psilocybin is a compound known to alter large-scale brain network dynamics. The medical team was about to observe exactly how a chemical that promotes neural plasticity interacts with a brain that has been deteriorating for a decade. The immediate reaction in the first 12 hours was a sudden, massive shock to her autonomic nervous system. The patient experienced profuse sweating, clinically suspected hyperthermia, and entered a prolonged, deep sleep-like state. To the clinical observers in the room, it looked as though the chemical stress had completely overwhelmed her already compromised neurological pathways, forcing her brain to power down entirely. Then, exactly 19 hours after the initial administration, she spontaneously woke up. She immediately initiated a flowing, highly detailed conversation about her own life, speaking continuously for several hours. This sudden outpouring of complex, fluent sentences emerged from a patient who had spent the last 5 consecutive years communicating in single syllables. The presence of those memories meant the physical records of her life had not been destroyed by the disease. They were intact, though the disease had effectively severed the pathways required to retrieve them. Over the next 3 days, the changes extended beyond her speech to her physical body. She regained the ability to stand, walk independently without caregiver assistance, and spontaneously dress herself. This chart illustrates the trajectory of her motor and executive function, showing a long, slow baseline decline over 5 years, followed by a sharp reversal over 3 days. The most startling data point in this vertical spike was the abrupt restoration of urinary continence, a complex physical function she had lost 5 years prior. Entering days 6 and 7, her social behavior shifted. She began making sustained eye contact and offering bright, reciprocal smiles to her surprised family members in the room. Her contextual working memory came back online. She accurately recognized specific relatives and actively asked questions about their whereabouts, like, "Where did Celso go?" A month later, her medical team administered a second, lower dose of 3 grams. This session was associated with spontaneous humor and the ability to vividly articulate positive emotional imagery, including describing a vivid, peaceful scene where she was happily surfing with her son on a tropical island. The data from these 2 sessions details a broad, multi-domain functional recovery. Movement, physical continence, episodic memory, and personality traits all returned in tandem. It is crucial to note the strict medical boundaries of this report. This is a single observational case study. Psilocybin does not reverse Alzheimer's pathology, and it cannot regrow brain tissue that has already died. This diagram shows the core hypothesis explaining this case: residual functional capacity. The neural hardware for speaking and walking was physically intact, but isolated as disease degraded standard communication pathways. The intervention forced the brain to bypass damaged routes and functionally reintegrate dormant systems. This documentation challenges a deeply ingrained assumption in neurodegenerative care: the idea that severe late-stage dementia always equates to total functional death. If systematic investigations into neuroplasticity can replicate these findings, researchers may discover reliable methods to safely access these latent networks. It opens a narrow, that profound window for families to briefly reconnect with the minds of loved ones they thought were permanently out of reach.